is semi-retired, does a post office route religiously Saturday. And that's really his own commitment. He's, likes to hike, has a couple of dogs and, he's local, so there's an advantage right there, whereas everyone else had to, come in from other places. And he's available starting the 15th of April. Yeah.
So he's had a work history, but a particular interest to me was the fact that he served as a fireman in town. And I talked to Rob McCarthy, and Rob gave him two thumbs up. He has experience in working for the fire department. So he's cut holes in roofs, and done other work like that. So I'm glad to have him on board. And as Andrea said, he's in town, so I hope that will avoid, the travel difficulties that Isaac faced, trying to get to town on weekends and so forth on 95 from New Haven.
Mhm.
The other thing that I think is interesting is that we had an applicant who was a professor at Mitchell College, and we were really impressed with her, but she was primarily looking for something to do during the summer when she's not in school. And she was also very gracious in saying, I don't want to take the job away from someone that needed more of me. It's something that I would kind of be doing for a fun thing to be outside and so forth. And she has a background in wetlands and tidal marshes and tidal marshes and natural history. So I thought that should the project arise, like we want to do some research on Forest Creek or whatever, that she would be someone that we might want to work with, and I think she'd be very amenable to working on something with us. So
What was her name? Do you recall? Madeline Collider. I wish she with a chainsaw.
well, yeah, she said that she has used them. Did she? Do you recall?
She said she falls and
She said she grew up, family heating their house with,
Yeah.
so it's only, I would imagine, but maybe. No, she was,
pets, I guess.
yeah, I don't know. She
Her
was
father's
afraid,
hand tools.
wasn't afraid of dogs.
But I wanted to talk a little bit too about equipment. So we talked about having two people with a chainsaw. And in the past, Peter had also been using his own chainsaw, and he had been paying for sharpening his chains, and the new chains, he took the rock or something like that. But we do have a chainsaw that we bought for Isaac's use, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So what do we think about getting a second chainsaw for Jason and let Peter use Isaac's old one, or should we just use the one and have two people cutting whenever they have to cut? Because that is not something Peter's doing now. That heard the language where he was cutting down a number of trees, but mostly trees that are on the ground. But still, he's using his saw on his own.
Well, using not a saw on his own, it's the open space saw,
Yeah.
but he's still sawing on his own, yes.
We talked briefly about that this morning, because I had given him a brush cutter, it looks like a lawnmower. And he's trying to figure out how to get it out of his, I wanted to get it out of my garage, and I think he must get out of his. He was thinking of putting it downstairs here to drain the gas. But I know like the CFPA, over the years, they've started with a small shed. And, if you volunteer there, you get the combination if you want to borrow equipment and bring it, sign it out, bring it back. But I'm wondering if that's ever possible.
How well does the brush cutter operate?
What?
What condition is the brush cutter?
It's running, well, it's a different kind of brush cutter. It'll take a big swath out. Versus a hand one, but,
Like a brush hog?
no, not quite that big.
Oh,
Somewhere in the middle.
Is it one of those DR?
No,
Brush
the
cutter.
Troy, it looks like a lawnmower actually.
Yeah,
Swinging thing,
right.
but,
But it'll take brush up to half an inch or something.
probably, depending on
What
what
is
blade.
it a chain or what, or
No,
a
it's a-
blade or what's
You
actually?
can put it has you put a heavy weed
Rotary.
whacker line in it, or, you know, if you wanted to,
Okay,
a blade. Um, But it was more of the question of, you know, whether maybe down the road, if we could buy a little shed, like a carefree shed, have it on one of the properties and leave stuff there.
but one,
I don't know, Andrew, if that makes.
one possibility is that, I talked to Ed Adante in the past about storing lumber, Public Works gated yard. Ed wasn't keen on that, but maybe he can give us a place behind the garage or something for this. And, you know, and would be accessible during the times that Public Works is using the facility, and might work out well because it's off of 4 Mile River Road where Jason lives. You know, we just have to figure out how we're gonna transport that thing to the properties.
Oh, usually I could put it in the back of my.
Oh, okay,
SUV.
it's nice, okay.
Yeah, and Peter did the same, I think actually in his Prius. But, you know, this is just, maybe a thought of, I don't know, how, you know, they're 2,000-3,000 as sheds, but if we put it on one of our properties, you'd always have access to it.
The only thing I worry about, Bill, is theft
Yeah.
and vandalism.
Yeah. I would be, yeah, it would be at risk just out in the property by itself.
But getting back to the chainsawing, I have two comments. I think the one chainsaw and having them both saw together is
Ideal.
is ideal. And then the question is, well, if Peter, and he doesn't travel with the chainsaw. He may have it in his car and then go back to get it on a certain property. But I guess if it's a upright tree, there's a little more danger to it. And would it be more of a nuisance to just say, okay, look, I could do it here, it's boom, boom on either side of the trail, no big deal. I don't know, maybe it's a judgment call by Peter. But I would say anything that's upright, definitely just tag it and just make a date to be accompanied so that there's no you have a second person there.
Absolutely.
I would even make it.
I think she had voted on that, and maybe like.
Yeah, but
Now it's-
Peter, and I'm not faulting him, you know, he can make a judgment and say, this is a down tree, it's across the trail. And then he'll cut it in half and roll it or something. So that's,
You mean by when he's alone?
yes,
Right.
Yes, I would make a distinction, you know, Peter's pretty good about it. You know, between not only a standing tree, but a tree that might be leaning or has some pressure torque on it, or to find a ground that's flat, you know, the risk there is that you
Right,
hit a rock or something underneath. the tree.
yeah.
So,
I,
Yeah, the leaners, well, I mean, but Peter's, he's taken a FEMA blogging course, hasn't he?
yes.
yeah,
Yeah, so he's trained. And-
Yes.
And that could be, if he pays.
He's using his safety equipment.
yes, he is.
I know, like, I had emailed him that I'd be back when he had that tree at Bartholomew. And I think he said he had his wife go. So he isn't going by himself.
Yeah.
That was a hard tree.
So is the question, whether we get another chainsaw or should we get?
I'm thinking no,
No,
because
no.
Peter, I think, will largely do the chainsawing. And
Yes, Peter,
Jason will, or there is a chainsaw training program coming up
Yeah.
that we could send Jason to. I believe it's a weekend and he
Yeah,
works a
I was-
Saturday,
I
so
was gonna say it, I would love to sign up to that, but it is gonna be a scheduling, a little bit of a scheduling issue, and he
maybe
made clear
advance
he wants
notice.
to work Saturdays for the postal service.
Right, well, maybe with advance notice, and it costs about $200, if I remember.
I mean, my question is, if Peter's happy enough using his own, if something happens to his chainsaw, we do have another one.
That's the question, I agree, Ann. If Peter is fine using his, and he may be more comfortable with the saw he uses all the time.
Right.
More, that's terrific, I don't wanna feel that we're taking care of, I got one over taking care of.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Peter's been using the town chainsaw.
He has that.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So,
And using the town chainsaw, which is, I think, fair.
Yes, absolutely. You want to talk about this report?
So he was not here for most of March, but when he came back, he hit the trails hard and took down 18, 14, 2, so another 2, so 2 for 22, 26 trees that were downed. And he cut them back. And then he got the equipment for the duck houses, which he and Bill put up today, right? And I have pictures, I sent them, I don't know if people got a chance to see.
I think they went everyone.
Okay, good. And, you apparently put both houses on this property, right?
Yes,
Which is fine. The other one could have been for Ames, but that's perfectly
I
fine.
think when the water level goes down, I'm gonna go clean the one out at Ames, but it might be a little late in this season to do it, but. It didn't have a guard on it either. on it.
And that's not, we didn't put that up.
No,
I don't know. Yeah, yeah.
We were starting to talk a little bit. And I don't have a question about the duck houses. The one question I had in looking at that, particularly in the back and forth conversation about who had here that could get us into, could get themselves into the water, but is that, how do we, and Evan kind of alluded to it, is there any risk, is there increased risk from predators to have the boxes actually on dry land? Do we have any sense of that?
That's
So now the baffle's designed to,
Okay.
for raccoons, snakes. And
My
that pretty much.
question to Peter, in an email earlier this afternoon was, where's the bottom of the,
Right.
and could a raccoon or a fisher or weasels or jump from either a tree?
We looked at that, and there's no, I'm gonna go back with one and maybe nip a branch, but there's no branches in the area, because
Okay.
snakes they climb and move pretty fast.
Yeah.
There's one that might be close, but we'll get it early.
I know very much about snakes.
I don't think they-
anything jumping from the ground. or-
Now, the way the baffles were, they were, there's no way.
Yeah, I have a baffle, exactly the same thing on my
Really,
nurse heater, and I watch the squirrels get skunked every time.
Yeah, but I had a baffle too, and as Bill was saying, I had a branch that was not that far away, the squirrel actually chewed the top of it, and made a little runway to run right across it. Bird feeder.
they're smart.
Mike, I have a cat, a very athletic cat, and she could easily jump 5 feet high.
Cat, yes, but not raccoon.
I don't know.
They're a little portly, most
Yeah.
of them.
But I waited this morning I went on the Bartholomew Trail to see if that bridge had moved. It's not interesting how the difference, but, walked out to the bridge and it's still in place underwater, but there's 4 feet of water on that trail.
4
Yeah, I was amazed.
feet high in water?
Yeah, there's a lot of water there. And I saw Una, Russ Boggs' wife, yesterday there, and we walked and looked, and I told her she had never seen a big deceiver, so yeah, we'll talk about, you
Oh,
know,
this is on Ames.
on
no.
Ames, yeah.
By Griffin, her house. the back.
Yeah, I invited her to come to next, I think she's gonna let me know with her and Russ and look at the beaver deceiver and see that it's the solution to,
I'm sorry, what did you?
I ran into Una.
Yeah, Anna.
Anna? Anu yesterday at Ames, and we walked up, looked at the culvert and talked a little bit about trying to find the balance of protecting the beavers, but making it so there's not a lake whippoorwill over there. So I invited her
Wow.
to come look at the beaver deceiver, so she's gonna let me know. And just.
Although what we're gonna have constructed there is not gonna be the same design though.
Exactly, but still the same,
It's the same
principle purpose, yeah, and she had seen one in Finland, so she was not, I don't think that, she's trying to, since I saw her, she saw her there, calm her down a little bit. I think they like the water and they
Well,
like.
you have led into our next topic on the agenda, would do that. So Mustard Ag is coming Friday morning, first thing in the morning, to try to open that up again.
Ah,
And
what time is first thing in the morning?
yeah, even though they're coming from Tiverton, Mass, they tend to get here early. I would say they'll be here by, at the latest, 8 o'clock.
Okay.
So I hope that they'll have success with that. And they also exchange number of emails with Suzanne Colton Carey. And she's concerned that she said she lives on Riverwalk too, and she kind of abuts the wet part of Ames, and she walks Ames a lot. She's very familiar with the property. She's concerned that when the water is lowered, it might put pests and animals at risk. And I tried to tell you, we're gonna, if there's egrets or somebody nesting along or any, or beavers or whatever, when the water level lowers, it's unclear to me how much that water's gonna drop, but it is certainly gonna drop when that culvert's opened.
I mean, we just have to let them design the best possible
Yeah.
beaver deceiver.
That's what I
And
wanted
that
to
will set the
measure it
level.
today.
I
You
told
did
Suzanne,
some work.
I'm,
Where do egrets nest?
Trees and trees.
Yes. That's not an issue.
I told Suzanne, I am as for protecting the animals that you are, but we can't have that whole stream blocked. We gotta get the water. going.
Because any much more, she's gonna have it in her house.
It's gonna back up onto people's lawns and septic systems, and we're gonna have a whole nother problem.
Yeah.
So they're coming Friday. I also got an email about a week ago from Mike Callahan, asking if he's the former owner, still involved with Beaver Solutions. If we wanted to renew our maintenance contract with our file, and I mentioned to him that I had talked to Johnny Egan about putting a device up and on Whippoorwill and then doing at least one more year of our file and another year of this other one to see how it goes, because according to John, it's gonna need to be serviced at least 2 or 3 times during the year to keep it free of debris floating down the stream. So we'll see how that goes. I also, heard kind of, from Fred that, and then talked to Martha, about the town property at 102.1 Mile Creek Road. That's the property that in block, the town has a right of way over, a gentleman that's building a new house, on Mile Creek Road. And Jim Lampos in particular, has taken the chance that if the town is asking people to clean up their own properties, the town should take care of its own house as well. And they have somehow gotten in touch with a company that is willing to do kind of phase 1 assessment of the property just to see what's in there. I don't know that anybody knows, but Jim was worried that, if there's vehicles, whatever, would there be gas or whatever, something of the nature of the property. So this company would do it for $4,500. And if it's determined that additional remediation has to be done, they would work with the town to seek grants for doing that. That's the status of that property. Now, when the property is mediated to the extent that it's needed, it was once offered to both open space and affordable housing. I know that Fred Fenton went and looked at it. He was not impressed with the shape it was in. Maybe the commissioner would be interested, if it's a cleaner lot. If not, I think open space might be interested in just having it as a kind of a unvisited refuge, kind of like, and perhaps be kind of a foot in the door, so to speak, if the two Sharoni families, future relatives want to conserve that, it would kind of add nicely to that property. So,
Well, it could be an open space museum of old cars.
so
Who knows what's in.
did finance ever talk about that?
Well, they have corresponding testimony to do it, so they
Yeah.
need an approval.
Yeah, I thought, Well, last I heard from Martha was that she and Anita were able to see where they could find that money.
Yes, they're gonna do it.
So I think that they're definitely committed to taking a look at that one way or another. So. And the other thing I wanted to bring up was, I think I sent it to you that, in I think a couple newsletters ago, Harbor Management sent out a press release. They noticed that they announced that they received $61,300 to support improvement to the Horseneck Creek Public Access Dock to enjoy boating, fishing, and other water activities.
Have they gotten their approval from DEEP for the design for that?
They have not received approval. for
They
the
got a
dock.
grant for a dock that hasn't been approved. How do you work that?
That's-
I want to know how to do that.
Yeah,
I
think we're really
had
involved.
the exact same question.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me how they did that. I don't know, maybe the grant is contingent on future approval. I am not familiar with the ship grants. I don't know who they come from. I would hope it's not deep that one arm is giving them a grant, the other arm is considering the application. I actually don't even know if the application is. If it has, we haven't seen
For the approval.
for the dock itself, yes.
And it's also very vague what A, the activities are, and B, or just this maintenance.
Yeah, I would expect that 61,000 will go for construction of the dock itself, because I'd seen estimates of even a higher amount than that. In addition to that, I would think that there would have to be some type of engineer hired to develop some type of roadway blueprint to have vehicular access to the dock, if that's something that's, of course, that's something Harbor Management is really still keen on doing.
I personally think the portage of, for that distance is sufficient. It's not it's what canoeists and kayakers do, so,
It would be nice to have. It would be nice to avoid cutting through a roadway with a turnaround
yes,
in that property, because it's a lovely
Absolutely.
forest.
yes.
Most people with a kayaker can then have it on their roof. There's no trailers involved.
Yeah.
I mean, I have seen kayaks on field. It's
Well,
rare.
they have-
Rare.
You know, there could be disability
Little,
requirements to come with this.
things if you put on the one end.
Right.
The other.
They don't drag it.
The state's involved.
That's one of the big.
They can get little rollers for that distance, it's not far at all.
What was your comment?
Well, it's not just for kayaking, it's also just for people going out, going, viewing
Right.
the area, so I'm just wondering if there are gonna be disability requirements to come with that,
That's
which will
So that's,
dictate access to the dock and.
Yeah, I feel like we talked about that is.
right, actually, they were turned down with an
Right.
original design because they said we want it to be wider
Yeah.
to allow for.
And it seems from the whole bridge discussions and from my discussions with Michael Barnes, that he was really keen on having some type of water access for people fishing. That's fine and good, but I hope that whoever goes down there to fish uses that dock and that doesn't walk all over the.
So many things you can hope for. But if they use, are we gonna put a trash can down there?
Yeah.
That's a major issue, that's like.
So, just in a little bit of harbor management news, Mike Presti is the sole chair, and Terry Lewis stepped down as a co-chair. I like Mike, I think he'll be good to work with. I asked Fred if he would be interested in possibly being a liaison to harbor management. Because he was head of the Buckmore Committee. I really expect that things will be much more cordial and cooperative now. I think we're past the shooting at each other stage and. If you want, Fred, I can we can maybe
You're a
you and
good
I
chap.
can meet with Mike Preston and Barnes and just kind of talk about what they have planned, so we know what's up.
Good idea, yeah. Yeah. So,
Thank you.
but that's-
Science. I, am happy to say that Board of Selectmen discussed our Indigenous Peoples' Acknowledgement sign. There was no problems with it. We're set to go. I talked to Martha about that today. I also got an email from Elizabeth Regan. She wants to do a story in that. I tried calling her. I didn't connect with her. I'll try to connect with her tomorrow.
So the signs are made, they just need to have a little more mounting, as of today, so early next week. Not at the end of this week, we can have them and, just call Matt and Chris and have them. Line that up and fire it up, and I have, in case people didn't see it. No, it doesn't really matter. I'll pass around what the signs look like.
I suggested potentially rebuilding a couple of kiosks and stuff.
Do you think some need to be rebuilt?
I think the only difference,
Those different colorings.
the difference is the two are shorter. Design, I don't think it's really necessary.
Right, I think we can certainly maneuver a way to mount given the layout we decided on, Indigenous acknowledgement at the bottom with just Champlain South, those two kiosks are very short. But if the other kiosks are in reasonably good shape, I don't think there's any construction needed there. I can't verify every single one of those other kiosks
I
and.
mentioned pictures of them, they're all looking good enough shape to be able to build a new map and hold new signs, screws, there wasn't any obvious. Backwards.
And Chris DeBoard had ideas as to how to reinforce those signs. Because the indigenous signs would be hanging below the
Mhm.
kiosk. And,
Will it be hanging or spanning the posts?
hanging, because the posts are like this,
Right,
and the sign is like this.
there's just not enough verbiage to, it would all be like one.
It won't be hanging like this. but
No,
It'll just be bolted in.
It would be,
Plans.
they would, he suggested that we could have a, from the back of the sign, piece of wood that comes down, whatever, something that it could be nailed to. So if this is the post
Mhm.
and it would come here.
Yeah.
You have some wood or metal hanging here to attach it to.
You just mount the sign on the front back post and screen the backboard, that's all.
Say that again?
The sign out. That's two struts you're gonna use the backboard of the kiosk, just mount the pieces.
Yeah. And there are different iBooks and things that
They wouldn't get a screen.
they wouldn't be swinging. Right.
So is that a job that we can have Peter and Jason do, take down all the old stuff and maybe, I don't know, put a white paint over it and then. This is,
There's blue and green, in case you didn't see it.
So we also have several students that they can take, and they look color, there's 3 others, I think. Where there's the intersection. Of interest. Those other plans. We move the extra signs for those, so. We need to get on just on a tree or. EDP or look to assess if there's a tree that's wild, 2 of them are on trees, one's on a post that I recall. I might look at. We may need a. I guess. let's see.
Yeah. It's just the map that's,
It's just a map, you know,
I would vote for We were hiking. Oh, moment about Twining. A couple days ago when you called me, and I really, I hate that, you know, blazes get nailed into trees and then the tree just engulfs them. And it's not good for the tree and it's not, you know, not sustainable really. So for the maps, for sure, I think.
So I've been through a lot, like, not like, otherwise they will tell you. That's design, help computer. Then we'll have this determined, this for, in one post, but then use a metal or,
Yeah, I mean, just.
would you like to figure out, you can sync it,
Right.
Are we talking about maps or scale?
Maps.
What's the height of them?
16 by 20,
So they're 16 high.
20 times.
Okay. Cause I have a 8 foot 4x4 post that you could cut in half, but how high that would.
So like a 2x6 or 2x.
4x4.
Yeah, that's gonna be hard to sink, don't you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like one of those snow fence, the metal snow fence posts, I think the land trust uses something very similar to that. Some of your maps are a little bit smaller than this, but I feel like it might not be the right height.
Actually, what feels small. Okay, let me have some stand.
16 high, 20 wide.
Why, funny.
And you're talking about a metal fence house? The ones with holes in them.
Yeah, it's probably not gonna be
It's
high
about
enough.
6 feet is generally,
They come 6 feet?
yeah, and then you
Okay.
put them in 2 feet. You
Yeah.
drive them in, they're 4 feet high.
That's, okay, then that would be easiest, I think,
Mhm.
achieve too.
Yeah.
I mean, I brought Cedar Coast in the past, it's more work,
It's a lot.
I'd be happy to supply one too.
Something to read it. Just reply otherwise, you know, when you sign the maps, you have them, you need them.
Right. And is this something that you guys think would be steward's responsibility, or do we need to? Any other?
I think that there was, yeah, I was thinking that might be a good job for Jason and jump right in and get active.
Mhm.
Have you communicated with, I saw you wrote to Chris, what was his response? He was just doing the backing. I wanted to stop them as long as, so where are they at in terms of?
They're ready.
Oh, they're ready.
They, I think, need to be mounted
Okay.
on a board or something, and he said beginning of next week. And especially now with the approval of Christine's sign, today's Wednesday, so I'll call him tomorrow. And so by Monday or so, I can pick up the signs.
So the backing, is he putting them on aluminum or some type of metal?
It's a metal,
Okay.
and I had samples of our signs, and he could match the color and the thickness and,
You know, will we have poles drilled in them?
I think so. I think we
The map, but that's.
talked about that and and we were looking at it, whether they're 2 screws or 4 on the corner.
You said the maps do or don't have,
Did you know?
I'm trying to recall. Look like, do they have enough of a border that we can put a screw in? And we can just do something where we kind of overlap the edge of it or something.
You'll have to see, because they're not all identical lines.
Yeah.
And I guess. Maybe some paint would. as well.
Well, when you start taking stuff off and different color blotches and stuff,
Right.
have it look nice.
So.
Yeah.
We're getting new
Some kind
maps.
of whitewash
Yeah.
is.
We
probably-
can figure out how to get here and that.
I just got a flyer in the mail today from Blazeville Hardware, Ace Hardware, talking about a Benjamin Moore sale.
Talking about what?
Benjamin Moore paint sale.
Oh.
They sell a lot of paint in that store.
Yeah. So kind of apropos to the signs, and Peter and Jason. Jason, is back on the 14th of April, so I left a message with Jamie and spoke with Jason about doing the onboarding on the 15th, not the 14th. And, I'm on break that day, so, I can meet at any time, so I'm gonna coordinate with Peter. I gave him the heads up already, so, I'm gonna meet with Peter and Jason on the 15th to talk about expectations and reports and sharing responsibilities and trails and creating a schedule where they both walk the trails together, and putting these signs up, I think would be valuable for both of them to take them down, to paint the boards, and at least give Jason the orientation as to where all these trails
Yeah,
are.
I also know where every property is.
Yeah. But I could take those signs anytime, because I'll see Peter next week. And it's like, here, have at it.
That was a tax states.
I'm sorry.
Tax states.
Okay, do you want to talk, speaking about the signs and so forth? We'll get into talking about forestry, but talk a little bit about that, and what Steve Perry, what he's gonna do about.
Yeah, so at Prairie Landing, we discussed initially minimum getting a nicer map done for the website only. Because it's not a property where someone's gonna show up and need a map of property because it shouldn't be there anyway.
Mhm.
But if Steve is gonna be doing that, could he also assist us with a project? That we tried to undertake earlier this year. Russ and I went out with the Avenza and tried to map where the plants are that we have planted. And,
Giving me a tree.
it was, yeah, it was kind of like, I thought, I think Greg suggested that maybe Steve could sort of come up with a good solution to that. And he seems to think that he can, and so he's putting together a work proposal that he give
got
an
it.
estimate,
He gave us an estimate, so
right?
to do his, whatever he has to do to find all the data that goes into completing the map,
Mhm.
doing the PDF of the map, but which is like we had with all the other maps.
Mhm.
And it was a separate step to have one put on counties to mount, but he'll give us an equivalent map to the others. And then he's gonna do another non-public map for
Right,
all your events and marks for
Right.
$550, which is
Right.
reasonable.
Yeah, and-
That's not reasonable.
I think it'll be super helpful going forward, just to keep track of things. And, be good for us to be able to document, as new plantings may or may not be added going forward, but, so I think that's gonna give me some peace of mind. I don't wanna lose track of these things. They can get engulfed, and especially if the stewards are gonna be helping us out, or even volunteers, on occasion, but if the stewards are helping us out and I can show them a map, they can have and take with them. And if we have landmarks, reference, oh, okay, so, to the left about 10 feet from this, white bush, whatever it is, there should be 3 red maple things.
It's been a long time since I used the event. Can you, when you're walking with that app, Russ, can you pinpoint, how accurate can you pinpoint a location on the ground?
Probably.
So you're in the vicinity of
Yeah.
where.
Well, some of it may
That's what we
be,
were doing when I didn't have a reference point, other than creating a trail, and probably my inability to use it, I just, that's not a detail. So that's the issue, we're gonna have to have some kind of mapping piece, so we can
Right, and I think Stevie, I think the way we left it is that, I don't know if he's may come out to the site. Help us with that, or, propose some other type of, you know, demarcation, like a law for smaller ground cover type plants. So you don't itemize every single little berm necessarily, that would be bad. But I think it'll be a really good step in the right direction, all of the recommendations, best practices for introducing natives and, conducting a responsible habitat restoration, talk about documenting and mapping.
I would maybe be a little hesitant to have somebody come on site, because I recall he gave us a serious initial cost when he actually does field trip, that
Mhm.
moves the cost pretty substantially.
Yeah, well, maybe you could
This
just
is
talk us
coming down
through
to
it.
East Granby.
Right.
Just off the top of my head, when we're talking about that, it might be a nice alternatives. We can get Emily or one of the people from Yukon that teaches events that come down.
Okay.
And look at it. They might go for that, maybe we charge us for that. So, yeah, this is perfect.
Maybe not anything about action creates a map for Fairland. When we were doing it, it's a random stuff.
Right.
It doesn't have that map reference points of the boundaries.
Right.
So
That's
if you
the
drop it
fair
down,
minimum, at least you got the boundaries.
so we may be able to figure out, things if you, here's the map of Fairland and stuff.
Right.
We'll see.
We'll see.
So, I'd like to talk a little bit more about fair community, but before I wanted to touch on another topic, so. Talking about flooding and stuff like that. At one point, Ann was going to have the Boy Scouts come and do a little handwork on the property. And she noticed there was a tree that was perhaps a danger to the scouts. Do you want to talk about having more costs on that?
Sure, yeah,
And
so,
and then I'll let you answer go into what's going to be done instead.
okay. Yeah, so. The rewind, the idea was to have a small project. And my original thinking was that it would be younger students. To do something as manageable as just garlic mustard removal, to just sort of let them bag it up and take care of it. And in talking with the scout leader for One High School, it sort of evolved that that particular group is going to be older, like some of them maybe even seniors in high school, and I was thinking this might not be very challenging for them. And B, there were a lot more of them than I thought there would be. He's got like 18 scouts or something. And the timing that would work for their troop is only a couple of weeks from now, August 25th, I believe. And so I went out to the site to see, if there were maybe some other invasives that they could also work on, or what other, how to amplify the project a little larger group. And first thing I noticed was that the garlic mustard is not that far along yet, which was surprising to me. It
Yeah.
How
will,
much is?
it will definitely,
It grows fast.
go, but it hasn't popped quite yet. And I also noticed that in this report, that apparently Peter went down and reworked the path down there. So where there was some stuff, it's already been taken care of. So the project is not,
But you move back, it'll.
it comes back, but it's hard to, in 2 weeks to get folks to say, oh, well, that used to be a garlic mustard, can you please pull it?
Yeah.
Yeah, not a great scenario, but while I was down there, I walked up a little further in property, and there's a locust that was leaning on another locust, and this was I think bad Sunday, maybe? I can't remember. It was that really windy day, and I'm telling you, we did not feel safe standing near this tree. It was practically at a 45-degree angle, hung up on the locust. And I told Andrea, I remembered that I had asked Peter to cut the vines. We left it. We noticed it was leaning, not quite that much. And I asked Peter to cut the vines because I was worried they were pulling them down. And now I'm thinking maybe the vines were holding it up. But in any case, it didn't seem like it was gonna be a safe environment for anybody to be out there, never mind Boy Scouts. And so Frank very happily found out that the town was having some other tree work.
Yeah,
done.
Ed Adante was having Wilcox do some work around town.
Mhm.
So I called Jason, gave us a cold survey, and we cut that tree down, just basically drop it on the ground.
Right, well, and the sad part about that is, I was talking to Jason while he was on the site. And he's like, yeah, I see the one you're talking
Oh,
about.
he was on Ferry Landing already?
Yeah, he went to go look at it, to give us
Okay.
a price, and, he said, I said, so, if it's possible, there's a bunch of cedar saplings that we just planted there. So it'd be great if it didn't fall directly on them. He goes, oh, it's gonna fall right on them. There's just no question. So, some of them may survive and, but when, our stewards go to cut it up, because they're just gonna drop it in maybe two.
And that's,
two
look,
chunks.
that's gonna be hard,
It's
right?
I don't know how hard
So
it is, but
Would it be less at risk of taking out the cedar if you took them both down? You had the leaning tree fall towards the road or whatever opposite direction? you want?
I don't know. He says, he thinks he can do it without taking the support tree. And,
And that's the tree that we want to, that's a,
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's
No,
not a
it's not
bad
locust.
tree, it's a black locust, so. It's not a beautiful tree, but. Anyway, I think that the key will be when our stewards go to do the remediation, cut it up and get it sort of, so we can move around on the property again. To try and not stay on the cedar saplings. So,
They would look at, maybe reuse it.
well, yeah, I mean, does anybody have a sawmill? Cause it's not gonna
Yeah,
be very
uh,
usable in chunks that big.
Tom Degnan, who's the tree warden for the town of Lyme.
Well,
This is,
well, if we can get it to him and then get him to mill it and I don't know.
the funny thing I was gonna hit.
I think
Over
the
the
thing
board,
that
even with a 4-foot board, I don't know what the girth of that tree is to get it out of there and get it up to the road, to get it to the sawmill.
well,
What the weight is gonna be.
if it would fall along the fall line, across the fall line of the hill.
Yeah, he says he thinks it's gonna fall kind of up towards the street, like kind of northwest.
Okay.
If you're facing the street,
Because if we're leaving it as a sort of a natural area, which I think we are,
right,
that if you have the tree fall, if this is the hillside, and you have the tree fall that way, leave it, just leave it. And, let, the animals, let the animals benefit from it, the frogs and the salamanders.
I mean, we're gonna leave it unless it has value to us as lumber that we can. It's not gonna cost us more to get it off-site and get it milled than it is, than wood is worth. I don't know.
What's worth to the environment? If it's a locust, it's gonna be there forever.
Okay, well. I don't know, again, if we,
If you just have somebody drop it and leave it,
that was the
I see
initial idea, but if we have a project and we need locust wood,
Well, that kind of leads.
We owned it.
Yeah, that kind of leads into the question I had that based on, if we have the Boy Scouts build a bridge, do we need lumber, do we need prep for that?
Well, so yeah, so we should probably, so I kind of panicked and called up Andrea and I was like, I don't think this project for the Boy Scouts is gonna happen. Either there's not enough for them to do or too dangerous for them to be on this property. And, do you have any other ideas? So Andrea, take it away with.
So for a couple of years, Peter and I had discussed putting a bridge on Champlain North between the Jim's Bridge, Jim's beautiful cedar bench and the Barbizon tree, because that early path is very wet and muddy, and so people go around it. So it's a pretty long, I guess, it's the size of this room anyway. The length of the area that we're talking about,
But you're talking about an elevated walkway, not a real bridge.
a footbridge,
Is there
An
a
elevated-
walkway.
an elevated work,
Yeah.
yes. So,
dumpster boardwalk around? Just to keep it dry.
Right.
yeah, so it would, the way I envision it is that you have a log at that end, and then 6 or 8 feet, you'd have another log. And 2, maybe 3 boards, depending upon the length, like 24 inches, no more, of a path, could be
Sort of
less,
Boardwalk.
A boardwalk.
Elevated, yeah.
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 And then have, if it's, just divided into segments depending upon the length. So just very simply, similar to what we did on, the yellow trail of, McCulloch across from, Ames, and what we also did on, Ames with the environmental club. And similarly to what you did at, behind Russ Fogg's house.
Yeah, yeah.
So
They're fast.
they're very fast, and I think simple enough that but challenging enough that the Boy Scouts could hammer that out pretty quickly.
So do we have
Rack,
to,
rack,
buy some lumber, and do we have to prep lumber?
Yeah,
How far is it far into the woods where you're talking? Oh, it's right by the tree there.
right by the Barbizon tree.
Oh,
And,
that'd be easy. Just
Very
line
easy.
and Have whatever the lumber yard is, and drop it off.
yep, and Peter could pre-drill or not drill.
Yeah, 300 feet for the city.
I think that would be, if you got a bunch of, excuse me, Bill, if you got a bunch of kids, let them try to drill that themselves.
Sure,
Let
yeah.
them do the whole.
So
job.
just, I don't know, 2, 8-inch width by planks next to each other. But whatever length they come in, maybe 6 or 8 feet, because they'd have to carry it in.
Size or you talking just like
A plank, but, plank.
Like
So
2 by
one-
10.
2 by 10, 2 by 8.
Yeah.
18, a couple inches between them, and you're 20, 21, 22 inches wide.
Because
Yeah.
we
And
have
just,
you
some
were just
4 by
saying you
4s,
had-
put 'em on.
something similar to
Yeah,
that.
I have about 8 foot.
Oh, 4x4? Okay, that might be more than what you want. We have a just 8 feet. 2x4 on the back.
Vantage,
That'd be
interface,
fine.
those numbers.
Those could be the cross planks.
By 4?
Yeah,
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 You don't have to go that high, and if you go higher, people fall. That just slippery.
well, it'll be about 3.5 inches off the ground, and then the height of the board above that.
yeah.
Okay.
Should only be 1 inch thick.
Well,
Still be 4.5
you-
inches off the ground.
Yeah.
Do you have any recollection of what you, materials that you ordered for things or public? Because it's gonna be very similar shopping list.
Right,
We could, excuse me, we could do something kind of like what, Bill set up at, the bridge built on Bartholomew or lumberyard over in Old Sabre. Maybe drop it off.
weird.
Yeah, they could drop it off, right by the day before the guys are gonna
Mhm.
work.
Will you take your four-by-fours and cut them to the distance?
Yeah.
Yeah, the 4x4, which you said is 8 feet long, so you get 4 of them out of there, right?
You have a set date to this, or is this?
April 25th is the date that the scouts are available.
That gives us enough time to get all the prep and everything.
Yeah, I'll be speaking to Peter again next week, and so it's on my agenda to talk to him about it, because he and I have measured it. I'm sure I have it in my notes, but he might be out there or I'll be out there, and we can just measure the length and figure out materials. And, again, and I would suggest that, well, I guess, open it up to, I think we would want to have at least 1 or 2 representatives of our
Oh, yeah.
open space commission at the 25th, so that could be Peter and Jason, it could be one of them.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the 4x4s are on the bottom.
Yeah,
Not the planks.
correct, that's the
That
4x4.
was what was confusing.
Yeah.
I was like, what am I that?
Your 2x10s,
Yep,
you need a 4x4 in the middle of it.
and what,
You don't want to pull 10 foot.
Yes,
Yeah.
every 4 or 5
Yeah.
feet, it'll bounce a little bit, but it's gonna make them. 2x10, but yeah. 2x10s and just decking screws, it should take about 15 minutes to finish the whole job.
That's bill time.
I don't know, 15 teenage boys want to take them.
then it's figuring out which end goes where, because it's a problem solving, like, as Russ knows from being at, some of our spots, it's, we can bang it out.
Go up, different size.
It's a different subject, but I know you and Jason and been doing it with Peter. Can I use Peter or Jason to, like, that upper 3 Mile River? I haven't been in there because there's been so much snow for a while, but I've got it tagged. Fred and I went in and kind of putting that new trail in there and get it like a little.
I would hold off on that, because I don't wanna bring it up again, now this,
Okay.
different things going on in that area, but. And plus we need to, eventually we need to think about doing a map there, because we still have the old map for that property. Are you the contact for this, what is it, the scout leader?
Yeah.
Maybe you can ask him how much we have to prep or how much they can do that day.
Do you want them, I mean, we're gonna cut the, we're not gonna have them cutting the planks.
Well, that's what you could ask them, say, we can have lumber delivered, you wanna cut the size, and they bring electric saws, what can they do?
I mean, you get a saw for that.
Well, I think.
He's the shop teacher, just saying.
Well, I think about what Logan did, I mean, we can hire Logan as an engineer
Yeah.
consultant.
I mean, I don't know, I think that having, you need like a.
You just ask them if they would cut it. They're 4x4s, they're not that hard to cut.
Okay,
Just ask
Peter.
great.
if they can't, they'll pre-cut that.
I don't want to presuppose that we have to do it. Let's see, let's give them this,
All right.
let's
Well,
make the job as kind of interesting for
Be
them as
able
we
to
can.
describe, would you boys be able to cut X number of 4x4 boards? We don't know the
There's so
number of
much
them.
liability with them if
I-
saws, if they're not hand saws that.
Well, they can say no, that's fine,
that-
and then we'll cut.
Yeah,
As I said, he
feel
is the
very
shop
uncomfortable.
teacher.
First of all, they're gonna have to have a battery powered circular saw.
Yeah,
Who gets one of those?
They might, no, they
all
do
the
it in the
time
wood shop.
practice now.
They have it in the wood shop.
Right, but
They
they're
all
gonna be
use them.
camping.
They use the chainsaw, I'm really interested.
I'm just
Are they
thinking
camping the night before
drills.
or behind, after?
You're asking things above my pay grade. I believe they're camping Friday and Saturday. night. And this is a Saturday afternoon.
So they
Where,
don't.
where they gonna be camping, on a Champlain, are they?
No, they're gonna be up on the hand.
In the Hampton State.
Okay.
Well, it can be done, well, next
Better
week,
than me.
next week is actually, so today is, I'm gonna say no, because, well, I shouldn't say that. Next week, the 13th through the 17th is school vacation, so it would have to be the week after that. When they're in school, because they might end up doing it in
Well,
school.
yeah, I don't know how much access he has to the shop for his scouts. You know, after school hours, and I mean, I can ask if, but then we would have to get the.
No, we
lumber
cut it on
to
site
him.
when they
Okay.
deliver it.
So I'm just gonna say, I feel very strongly opposed to it being cut on site by a bunch of Boy Scouts. That's how I feel.
Is there a world where we use this project as a opportunity for people to come up with a solution, not this team? So show them the site, show them some drawings, show them, what it is that
Don't
we're
have that
expecting.
time
I
between
hate to
now
say it,
and
I
then.
could have done this in the time we just.
Yeah, we just talked about it, right? But,
To have a Boy Scout project.
yeah,
I
right.
mean, I agree with Ann. I think it should just be cut. And then they can use the drills, right? So that still gives them the
Figure out
opportunity
what the.
that they have to do spacing. Yeah, like someone who was a high school teacher,
Thank you.
I think that still gives them enough stuff that they have problem-solving skills involved with this without giving them sauce.
Still.
It's great that you're prudent, I just don't know why we're judging this for that, I mean, they can tell us
I
if they want to
also,
do it or not.
how
John
many
Ross is a,
circular saws, battery powered circular saws do we have access to?
Well, we can have the.
One. One is not enough.
We don't need to have the lumber delivered to Champlain. We can
It's
deliver-
hard to cut a four.
Your backyard.
Saw. Flip it around 30 times, it doesn't, about right, maybe Beard will cut it.
That's the way to cut it, I really do.
I would have them cut the 4x4s in.
and I said 4x4s all the time in the circle, so.
Unless you have a 10 inch.
So I go brings beds in my garden.
Right. Yeah, the 4x4 would be great too.
I think there's still enough stuff for them to do. They can feel a lot of ownership over the project.
Yeah, I
That
like
you have
that.
to know about.
You're just gonna do a 4x4 that you use a chainsaw.
Yeah, well,
It's
that's,
easier to do.
okay, but, in any case.
Okay.
Moving right along now.
Moving
This
on,
is
so.
the second iteration of this project already. And you left to get through it.
You don't know how much fun that was gonna be. did you? While we're still talking about Ferry Landing, maybe a month ago or roughly, I got an email from Deep, saying that they are they're coming up with a new grant program for rural towns. So for once, Old Lyme is eligible and we're not being basically excluded because we're not in an urban area. For once, Old Lyme is eligible for this grant program. It's a climate resiliency grant program. So Ann and I met with Frank Servo, who is a state forester for Deep at the Fairhaven site. We walked the site with him and talked to him about it. So Frank, let me give you a little bit of background of what the plan is supposed to do. The plan is for communities that have conserved land and a small population. And what they want to do is basically make a property climate resilient. And doing this as kind of, I guess, example properties or model properties. So for Fairhaven Indian, I wish Maria was here, because I would be interested in knowing what her response would be. Basically, Deep would pay for everything. So you would have a forester come in, look at your trees, mark your trees, any invasive trees, disease trees, whatever, come down. You have to, Deep would pay for some service to do that. Trees would be chipped and the chips left on site. They would you would have somebody come in, not sure how they're gonna do that with the train, but that's something to us in the future. They would chop up all the brush and the briars and multi-floor rows and everything, treat what's left for the herbicide. And then provide the town with native stock to plant and help the town with having those trees taken on the site. The only thing the town would be responsible for subsequent to that, we can try to basically maintain that stand and keep it going to the extent possible. And the main concern that Deep has, which is basically the concern that we have now, is they don't want deer to come in there, deer being able to replant. So he talked about, well, maybe put a fence around the property, whatever, but we could address that afterwards. But I like the fact that they're gonna basically do it for forces.
So I just had a question in your follow-up with Frank.
Yeah.
Did he said that Deep would be organizing this, or that like
No.
we organize it and they pay for it?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is how it's gonna work, but Frank, will write up a report, including the information he got from talking to Ann and I, and what his impressions were of the property, when he visited it. He will send that report into his supervisor, his legal directors, the forestry division, saying that and he said, totally, right, this is a qualifying and a good piece of property for this program. The grant will be announced in June. I don't know when the deadline period will be. And what we do is basically come up with exactly the requiring the grant, but basically say, this is the property, this is what we've done. We would like to do A, B, and C, D, as you suggest. They're gonna pay for it. I think our main responsibilities would be to hire a forester and. Did you?
And another, I don't know if this is the same grant you're talking about, but there's also people at Deep that would help make a forestry plan, which I think is.
So this is different.
Okay.
Here's a list of foresters, in a booklet that I haven't had. So we got a forester to come in there and do it, and we got a tree company that can come in there and do the 3 steps. I don't know how Deep is gonna provide the plants, maybe they have a nursery, but they'll give us the plants. This is,
Would provide the plan.
yes, Deep will provide all the plants, 100% Deep funded.
Wow.
No match from the, it's a great
No,
program.
I mean, but they have their own plants that they
No,
bring to
they
the
won't.
site.
Yeah, contracted.
Contractor will probably do that. I don't know how the plants are gonna get
Sounds-
to us. But,
Yeah.
and Deep will certainly not have their own plants. They'll contract with somebody like, one of the big, wholesale.
They would
nurseries.
do the contracting with them? I mean, cause
They-
I was under the impression that we had to come up with a plan, we had to find a contractor to do the, the tree felling, we had to
yes.
find a contractor
Yes.
to do the processing, the
will-
spraying, the planting, all of that.
Yeah.
We have to project manage this.
Yes.
And they will write a check.
Yes,
Okay, I just
I
wanted
would
to be
assume
clear
that
about that.
for the grant, you're gonna give them, I have to take down these 5 trees for this cost. I would like these plants, and then
Well-
it's not an open-ended
no, well,
Right.
what it would be is, I would presume that's part of the forester's product. He was saying, when this area is clear, this is what I suggest be put in here for the type of soil that's in there. I'm sure that Deep is gonna have. I'm not sure, but I would strongly suspect that they're gonna have their own criteria for what they'd like to see planted to be climate resilient stock.
Did the water aspect come up?
They did that. That would be something. Actually on site. I think you mentioned it, that there is a well or spigot or there, so it's
State property.
on the state property, but if. Deep is paying for us, maybe we could talk to them,
I don't think the project is doable without a water source. I mean, and I'd be shocked if they didn't take that into consideration and said, yeah, here's your money.
Well, I mean, how many forests have water sources?
Well, this is true, but
So,
you know,
that's-
was hoping that Frank might have anecdotal information about how they handle this at other sites.
Yeah, we're getting into the weeds more than that. We're at a pretty high level now, and I absolutely understand that water is going to be an issue, particularly when we're getting hotter and drier summers.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think that property has somewhat of a potential to do something like that. I don't know if we can tap into that well, if we could do some type of pump with an irrigation system into the pond. But that would be something, that would be something for us to look into.
What if you got a large tank, where you can bring the generator down once and pump it, fill it, and then have have the tank high, obviously, and then just get a hose on it.
Some kind of a water plan.
Yes.
Would have to
You
be
talk about
part of
watering
the
a lot of trees, there'd be quite a few
Yeah,
planted.
a lot of things.
Well, that would be something, you know, that have our consultant, somebody work. That's a.
Do they
integral
have
part
a
of the plan.
time limit that they want it to, because, I mean, one of the things, and I know, because I've read a fair number of the you know, rehabilitation plans for forests and just, habitat restoration, and they are very gung ho about clear cutting and starting all over again. So I gotta think they have some kind of idea about
Yeah,
water,
yeah.
but
Well, I don't think.
but I
that most-
feel like there's something to be said for, you know, doing it in installments too. You know,
I don't think most forestry practices consider water. I mean, that the forester or the loggers don't go back and water their own plants.
no, because they just wanted the wood.
But that-
They weren't trying to restore the forest, they were just, you know,
well,
harvesting the wood.
That they are, because they're
But were they
taking out-
planting
taking out
anything?
They're taking out the trees that don't belong, who are, they're the wrong species, they're invasive, and they're, leave the trees that you want, and those trees will flourish
Populate.
and provide the seeding for the next generation. And that's it. You're not planting, going, except maybe in pine forests in the south, they plant trees, but in New England, you're not out there planting oak trees, you're favoring the oak tree that's gonna provide the acorns that are gonna drop on the
If you-
weed litter and.
Yeah.
So that's,
If we had any good trees to drop acorns or some hours.
All your points are really valid, yeah. And, you know, the devil's gonna be in the details, and it's either very important exactly what I just think that this is a unique opportunity for us to really kind of jump ahead a couple of years with anything. We'll see what the grant program looks like, and that's the point where we decide to get go on that. So
Who's the conference?
the program is going to be announced in June. I'm not sure that they even know themselves what's going to be in the program at this point. I'm sure that's what they're working on. And from my experience with deep programs, there, you know, there could be things that thrown in there that make it less attractive. I know Karen knows what we're talking about. Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see how it goes, but I just wanted to share that. So we have the opportunity to consider something to. So. You know, some of you work are not available, but Ann and Evan and I attended the CLC conference, which I found the workshops that's typical of varying utility. I went to the heat workshop and I thought that was particularly interesting, listening to them talk about their grant programs. And I chatted a bit afterwards with Tim Bradley, who does the recreational trails program. This would be of interest for you, Karen, and for Bill. The Deep Recreational Trails Program is meant to basically encourage the construction of trails exactly like the crosstown trail that we've talked about. And it allows monies to be used for equipment to maintain trails. It allows for monies to construct accessible trails, which I've always been interested in. And it allows monies to be used for either limited acquisition of land or conservation easements crossing lands to allow trail passage. So it has a lot of attributes that would be of help to us. Now, the problem is there's no money allocated for it now. But the legislature's meeting now is, the program is generally funded through bonds, like many of the programs. Governor Obama came out a while ago in support of open space. A number of groups, whatever, are pushing for monies for that, including CLCC. So I would fully expect there'll be money available at some time in the future. The negative to that is that these are really, really competitive grants. And when I talked to Kim about it, the first thing she said to me was, "Did we give you a grant for a bridge in town?"
Yeah.
And that was for, I think, $20,000 to help in planning for the Lieutenant Real Bridge. So, and that was going to be part of the crosstown trail. We actually supported that with the Halls Road Committee because it would be a way to support that. But I don't know if you saw a letter that Randy Nixon wrote to the Examiner, basically saying, "Why do we need a bridge if they have a sidewalk?" And for me, getting from east to west, if you can walk the sidewalk to the Connecticut River, is fine for me for a trail. As long as we have the access. And also, I don't want to throw you to this. Ann and I attended a workshop on a program that I was not familiar with. The service that comes and help and does some consulting for towns. Do you recall what that was? And that the last one we went to?
It was
I
part
had a
part
page
of
of this in
the
this
farmland, it was part of the agricultural, USDA for initially, but now it's become a nonprofit. And did not bring my CLCC notes with me and I'm blanking on them. Oh, I'm sorry. But
I'm going blank. I did have a sheet on here to talk about it. They come in and consult for various things about
Right.
forest practice and so forth. And it kind of relates to what I didn't answer your question before, but I'll address it now that I talked to Frank Servo and I also talked to Dan Paracchio, who's one of the deep foresters, and they have had programs to help towns, land trust and forest management. They're not funded at the moment. They will institute them again in the future. It might be somebody just to reach out to and talk to them. I do have contact information before, and I'll try to reach out to them and see what I can find out.
actually, they have an environmental review team. It's the Connecticut RC&V Council. And They do everything from forestry, geology, wildlife, wetlands, agriculture, planning, archaeology, soils, open space, transportation, and coastal resources. You submit an application through the ERT, the Environmental Review Team website. So that is, what that workshop is about. And so, and they're great. So they will just come and do an evaluation on a property for you if you're, it would, you know, I don't know if that would be useful as a pre-acquisition tool or, you know, for a grant. I think they need to get materials to support grant applications for various projects or acquisition initiatives.
Did you, what workshops did you attend that? Did you find anything of interest?
Yeah, I interested in, the riparian buffer. That was what folks on. What's that?
Did you go to that? I was in there. I didn't
Yeah.
see you. Where are you hiding?
There. Just talking about the importance of protecting riparian. And which is something I pushed for years, when I was on the Wetlands Commission, to increase the width of riparian buffers and try to prevent homeowners from clear cutting all the way down to the stream side and that sort of thing. That was an interesting. They correct me if I misspeak, but I think that they were talking about getting some kind of regulations in place to protect a wider swath of stream side land.
Yeah, they have there's a bill that is under consideration and I think it may have already been voted on. Session, but they felt like it had a very strong chance of passing.
So I've been kind of following that bill for Gateway, and the three people that have been working at, Mary Mushinsky from Wallingford, who was retiring after the session, but she used to be my state representative. Alicia Sherman from Rivers Alliance, and from our town, Mike Aurelia's wife, Denise Savage. Connecticut is the only state that doesn't have a statute pertaining to riparian buffers, and they're trying to do this. And it has faced a certain amount of difficulty over definition of wetlands, believe it or not. And how riparian buffers would I think relate to wetlands as opposed to actual flowing waters and streams.
Right, it was
But,
debating the word
Yeah, I
riparian.
talked to Alicia quite a bit at the conference, and she is optimistic this will pass. That'll be a big plus.
You know, because I remember talking to the Wetlands Commission about, I got some information from the state of New Hampshire. They have a very robust area buffer regulation, which surprised me because I think of New Hampshire as, you know, live free or die.
Regulations be damned.
Yeah, don't tell me about regulations. Anyway, but, no, I thought it was that was the one I got the most out of.
One of the issues that Gateway is dealing with this, not only riparian buffers, but setbacks from waters, edges and so forth. And it seems that everybody that lives along a waterway, probably everybody everywhere, but the people who live along the waterway who come to Gateway have to have a pool put in, and most of them are looking to put the pools into the setbacks. The other interesting thing about setbacks is our state senator, Martha Marks, who's very strong on affordable housing, has proposed a bill which would allow, small structures of presumably affordable housing to be built on. I don't know the exact details, but quite small lots, maybe as small as 5,000 square feet with very small setbacks, as little as 5 feet on either side, and maybe 10 or 12 feet front and back. So, we should see go back up.
Sounds like sound deal.
What could go wrong?
5,000 square feet.
So I attended, the first one I attended was the Wildlife Action Plan update. Wildlife Action Plan, and it sounds like they have, this is something that gets updated every years, I think. And I would encourage folks to take a look at it. They said it would be online soon. And CLCC was 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. So, you know, I would say certainly by May, you should be able to access, it sounds like a lot of really good information, that you can screen in different ways. The very, I have a lot to say about the Connecticut Conservation Opportunity Areas, which is a way to, you know, sort of identify, you know, if you're particularly interested in preserving a certain type of environmental resource, you can see where that is across the state. So if you're looking for land acquisition purposes, for instance, and you have certain criteria that you want to make sure a parcel is, you know, going to have, you can use, it's an online GIS platform that you can use to sort of zero in on the ideal properties where they are now. Are they available? Can you afford them? I don't know, right? But there's, they have the deep GIS open data and the eco information and a lot of interesting layers of data that you can use to evaluate things.
The Conservation Commission Rustin and worked at their mission statement, which I presume was approved by the Board of Selectmen Monday evening, but they are very interested in working cooperating with us. And one of the things they are doing is having a series of seminars and talks. And I believe one of the future talks will be by Brian Hess, who's in the Deep Wildlife Commission. He's one of the authors of that plan.
I think he was one of the speakers. Yeah. He was at the conference.
I didn't know that.
I'm
It's interesting, there were a lot of deep people there. There was several people I wanted to talk to. Just like 600 people in about 5 buildings. I knew right. Never got to see kind that. Yeah. So the other event that happened since the last video, fortunately, I was not able to make it. I from here, it was the Land Trust had their annual meeting. And I don't know if there's anything you want to say briefly about that.
You know, it was, the big announcement, of course, was that we closed on the Ekman property. So we now own it. Hey, they've already started coming up with dates for work parties to add the trails. You know, Edie kind of gave just some, stats on, you know, we've got 30 stewards, we've got a 7-member committee that coordinates them all, and you know, then we got the new gate installed at Watch Rock, 12 benches were put out. Got 12 benches, doing a new boardwalk at Boggy Hole, and then we are also building kiosks, so we'll be a kiosk and outreach,
Excuse me, do you have like a design for kiosks or
oh, what?
design for kiosks? that
I
you use?
believe there is a design, there's a lot of discussion about that design. But they think that they can, instead of building benches, now we move to kiosks. Have a kiosk
You know,
building.
one thing you might want to do if you don't have a set design, I don't know what your requirements are, but the kiosk at Tree in the Gap parking area on McCullough was built by Wayne Abrahamson and Jim Mildrum. I think it's a nice, pretty nice kiosk. And Wayne probably would have the plans on how they built that.
Okay,
And I was gonna ask or suggest that we have to a new one, I would ask him if he'd be interested in building those.
Outreach, we've got 3 things going, or 4 things going on. We've got the nature walk with Maggie Jones and on the 11th at Hatcher's Hill. Arbor Day tree walk on the 24th,
May 11th.
April 11th.
Oh, April 11th.
April 11th. Maggie Jones, we've had her before, she's pretty good. Arbor Day tree walk is at Hoffman Matheson Reserve on the 24th. And then May 2nd is the spring bird walk with Joe Atwater, and that's Lay Allen. And then, May 30th, the woman that gave the talk at the annual meeting, Ginny Apple, the talk about coyotes at the meeting, will be doing a talk on beavers, and that's at the library. Library?
We already had her.
We
Is
had
she
her.
doing another one?
Yeah, we had her in November.
Apparently.
Okay.
Yeah, and I thought you did, but you know, I didn't hear that planning until like just recently. I don't always hear what's
Gonna
going
get yelled at by conservation because they may have done one too.
You know, that's about it. We gave our land saver award to Thor, Holt, who's our attorney, who basically worked so hard on the Oslo grant. It was, I think it was 2 years. The time frame from the time we applied, to the time we got the money.
So
It was brutal. It was just brutal. You know, in looking at this grant, then they looked at a grant we previously had and said, oh, by the way, we forgot to get this. Can you get that for this before we do this? And it's like, it was just. Yeah, it was brutal. But again, Ginny Van Apple did her talk on the Eastern Coyote, and she's a really good speaker.
Yes,
Really liked her.
it's a good meeting. I went to it, yeah, it's good.
It was pretty well attended too. I think I had 60 RSVPs.
Good Karen. So Sabine O'Donnell is in Europe now, but I exchanged multiple texts with her over the last couple of days, and the one thing that she mentioned to me is she said there now the power of Eklund after 3 years, but
3 years, okay.
going to be named the Woodhead Preserve. And that will help them because she said that you're going to be talking to Tom Woodhead. Evan and I looked at his property, the neighboring property, and maybe that would be a inducement for him to have one Woodhead property.
Yeah.
Combine them.
The naming was a big discussion because we don't normally name preserves after people that we have to buy the property. You know, it's normally a donation thing. And that kind of was a big discussion.
I feel too bad.
Yeah, and then I don't know if, you know, part of the strategy was, well, let's name it Woodhead and try and suck them in.
One would hope that if you're going to do naming rights, they would give you full fair price
Yeah,
in reflection.
yeah. Well, with the Oslo grants, it has to be, you know, it's only when it's appraised. We can't do anything over appraisal on the Oslo grant.
Maybe if they did a bargain sale,
Pardon?
if they did a bargain sale,
I know in line, the Plimpton Reserve, it was a bargain sale, less than market.
yeah,
I don't know if
And
it
it's
was a
called
bargain sale. I wasn't
I
around.
mean, that's. But if somebody doesn't know a bargain sale, that's you. The owner has the property appraised.
Mhm.
And then they sell it for, let's say, 30% less.
Yeah.
The 30% that they aren't getting, they take as a donation.
Yeah.
And then they can cover their capital gains tax.
I don't know that individual. I came in when the contract was already.
I think that the tax deduction is to go against income, not against cap gain, but whatever.
But I actually, one of the workshops at CLCC I didn't talk about was bargain sales and tax advantages for selling property to land trusts and towns for conservation. And after about 10 minutes, my head was, it really was he got into the tax code to a great degree. It was really more for CPAs than for land conservation people.
Yeah.
But the other thing I wanted to mention, I'm sorry, here is that Sabine said you're also talking to the Hill House family about that property.
They're finally kind of ready.
And there's
Mhm.
one or multiple properties out in that neck of town that
I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought they were,
Two,
I
at
thought
least
there was-
two, and then,
Yeah. Is,
I
I don't want to push on the spot, but is there a Hill House property that you have an access easement across that connects your upper stream over to ours? Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of properties, Dan and I met with Melinda Monfeld. We had a, list of properties that was sent to the town. I think I mentioned this before by Rivercog, asking which properties were permanently conserved and which were not. And we talked to Martha Shoemaker, and a lot of those properties were basically tax foreclosures. Many of them are small properties, and you know, I think the town is gonna look at those and decide, do we really want to keep a property that's 1/10 of an acre
Yeah.
in the middle of nowhere? And try to sell it to a water.
Sell it to them, but.
So a lot of the properties were not open spaces, just properties that were assumed to put taxes or whatever. And Melinda was gonna try to do a quick survey of some of the other properties. I also wrote to Wendy Hills, the open space coordinator for Lyme, and we exchanged a couple emails, and I asked her if she would get together with Ryan just to talk about conservation easements. She said that all land trust and town properties are currently conserved. But I'm not sure what exactly that means, if there's easements on them or. I found out rather interestingly that Eric Knapp, who was our land use coordinator, that if a property is set aside for open space as part of a subdivision application, the 10% property set aside, that does not mean it's permanently conserved. The town at some point, the planning commission could vote to basically open that up and sell it back to the developers or do something with that property. So it would be very unlikely to happen, but it's theoretically possible. So that those properties are not actually conserved, which is kind of a surprise to me.
I think the difference too would be, if it was an easement, and you wanted to resell it, then you'd have to go through the Attorney General's office.
Yeah.
If it was simply an outright real estate purchase or a
Website.
set aside, if the town owns it pretty clear, they can do, I mean, as Groton did when they took the open space in Groton and built a high school on it.
The other thing that's come up now, and talked to Ann and Russ about this, is Jim Lambos. Received a grant, and he's setting up a whole line resiliency committee through that grant, which is administered by the United Sea Grant and UConn, to develop a strategic resiliency action plan for the town. They're setting up the first meeting sometime between April 22nd and May 1st. Now, Russ, as chair of the flood and erosion control, will also be on that committee, and asked Russ if he was coming to the meeting wearing that hat, if he would also wear an open space hat. Just kind of fill us in, but I would be interested in attending the first meeting myself.
When is the tentative?
There were a number of dates that were turned out. I'm sure you saw that survey.
Yeah,
So
there's never been any, there's actually zero information about this whole thing.
yeah, it's very sketchy. I think the first meeting was just basically to talk about what exactly they're gonna do.
What is it?
So, long story short, it could be third week of April to first of May. And I can tell you with some certainty that Russ and I will be enjoying dinner and Cape Cod after May 1st, so neither of us will be there.
So, May 1st is, Friday.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I may not be here myself, but.
So,
Because they ran a little through. Some, first, yeah. May first,
Only gone for 2 days, but.
and I just wanted to mention a couple wrapping up a couple of different events and things that are going on. The the Old Line Conservation Commission, in particular, Brandy Campbell was interested in coming up with an inventory and map of endangered species and plants in Old Line, working with Hank Bruner, who's a conservation biologist and herpetologist retired from the Connecticut Science Center. I don't really know exactly what that's gonna involve or what it's gonna do. If anybody's interested, perhaps working with them to the extent that they walk on the properties, let me know. Now we'll just see what they come up with. And, Andrea shared, the advertisement from the Lyme Land Trust about a walk to talk about not particularly well written, rare plants in Lyme. And I wrote to Wendy Hill, part of kind of back and forth, but so you're gonna show people where the rare plants in your town are. And she says, that was really poorly written. Jim will point out and identify native plants which are rarely seen except in the springtime. Spring ephemerals is how she took it. And she mentioned that Jim Natal, who is, he has I think a nursery, is going to do a couple of walks. One, he's going to do a quote Saturday, May 12th, a rugged ramble traversing swamps, wetlands, and rocky terrains. And then later, that's from 7 to 3, and then from 3 to 5, it's going to be a more moderate walk.
7 to 3.
7 PM to 3 PM.
Yes. And then he's
That's all right.
That's the rugged ramble. And he's the owner of
Like a bill
Wildwood
walk, sound like a bill walk.
Garden LLC. And like you said, she really likes it. She says, you might want to see if he'll do a walk for you in Old Lyme, so that might be something to make up. That's basically kind of all I have at this point. Andrew.
I don't know if this is under new business or continuing, but I'd like to talk about the hiker happy hour.
Okay, go for it.
So, tomorrow, Mary Devens and I are meeting with, Chris and Leslie at the Old Lyme Inn. This was like a year in the making. Just to kind of go over the past, the present, touch base, remind them of the dates and putting out the notices and, I guess clarifying the, offerings. And, because there had been talk about there being of paying, that never came to fruition, I would just, rather than are we supposed to pay, are they supposed to pay, just to be clear. The first hike is May 6th, so that's the next Wednesday, first Wednesday in May.
Who's doing that?
We are. The kickoff for that one again, and that's gonna be, we talked about it back, in January, Champlain South, Library Lane, perhaps touching on the vernal pools. So I'll reach out to Mike Oriella, Aurelia, that he's passionate about that, and he might be able to be ahead. Yeah, so if anyone knows that they, in advance that they can attend, I think you guys will both be away. You'll let me know, just as a head count kind of thing. And here we are, almost less than a month away, and I feel like we're a little behind the ball, but sound like us, that we don't have a hike yet. Well, it was largely that's Leslie, as a matter of fact, just trying to get the Old Lyme Inn on board. So since, as I said, it's been a long time in the making, and it's like I would casually see Chris different places, and it's like, can we meet before this day? Can we meet before this day? And she's traveling a lot. So anyway, this is our window. So that's all.
I had one sort of new, I think I may have mentioned this at the last meeting, but, I'm really very keen on trying to, like, there's maybe one or two other people that wanna work with me on setting up a presentation on a public education presentation of some sort for, at this point, we're probably talking about summer or fall. You know, with a, if you line up a speaker, not generally available at the drop of a hat, but I think I mentioned last time, one topic near my heart is raptor safety and bird safety in general. Mainly, it just keep putting it out there in front of people that, rat poison doesn't just end with the rat.
Yeah.
And, and then just talking a little bit about what you can do to prevent bird strikes and other kind of bird safety stuff, which might be a really great, partnership. That, but also I've been noticing driving around town, everybody has had their lawns fully pesticide laden. And, the idea of maybe finding someone who can speak to responsible, sustainable urban landscape techniques that don't involve, spraying chemicals up.
Or just leaving the leaves on the
The
ground.
leaves and.
I'm one of the
May
few
and-
people on Sill Lane
If we could
that
get,
actually has leaves on my property. It's shocking. I would just start at our house.
well, no mow May is a thing, so we could find somebody,
Is it a thing?
oh yeah,
I've never heard of it.
yeah, no mow May, you're supposed to let your
Right.
lawn be for the
Yeah.
month of May. And, so if we can find, a speaker, if anybody knows someone who address sustainable landscaping, best practices.
Isn't there a pollinator group in town?
Pollinator.
Pollinator group. isn't
Well, you know who might know, is Suzanne Thompson.
Suzanne, yeah.
Who might address that, because she does a lot of gardening stuff, this Gail Reynolds too. That's kind of a little bit in conservation's bailiwick, but I have no problem with you pursuing that. I try to, the other thing too is lighting in my.
Mhm.
And I tried to tell conservation, Gary, when he was first. Gary Gregory, when he was chair, that, you can't just do a one-off talk at the library. You've got to keep talking about that all the time.
So, and maybe that's something, I don't know when the next writing assignment is gonna come up for our wonderful writer, Christine. But, one or either of those topics with something that accentuate, one of the things about the Fair Landing project was the idea that we were gonna hopefully be able to point to that property and talk about, the idea of, managing invasives, planting natives, leaving dead trees,
Mhm.
which is sort of the.
Back to your raptors or other presentations, do you think we should try to do conservation and so a joint effort or something? Kind of bridge the gap,
One or
kind
both.
of creative?
Yeah, probably.
Watching coyotes again.
Not coyotes, but, but I think that the raptor situation might really be best partnered with.
We don't have any osprey nests on our property. We have one quite close. It's on the Blair property next to Horson Creek. That might be, do you envision that there's any properties that would agree? Put up one, a osprey nest?
Interesting question. There's a name of the road, I think it might, anyway, up in line, I noticed an osprey platform on a freshwater pond. And I was a little surprised, but I guess they can fish anywhere, right?
Mhm.
So.
They're
We put one at Fair Landing,
interior New England.
I don't know
away
if
from the
many
shore.
fish are actually
Yeah.
able to manage with the shallow water there. There's some very
Yeah, I don't know that big fishing ferry lane, but it might be a place for them to stay and then go to the river.
That's right, if they can tolerate the eagles there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
That's all the word. What do you think? Are you gonna need Doug Weston?
I could check with Joe, but this was, I think, a pretty good time to, get them in the ground.
I think we're close to having, you probably know better when they nest, wood duck.
I would think that they, right about now, they're looking for a nest, so this, I'm be curious in the next couple of weeks whether anybody, except for maybe tree swallows, could go in there.
I was just gonna ask you, would anybody else like that, like to use that as a
in
home?
there.
That's what happens to me. My bluebird houses are filled with tree swallows up here.
Yeah, yeah, and English sparrows, they're famous for, invading bluebird nests. We had a bluebird nest on our property where the bluebird had already nested and had chicks in the nest, and English sparrow went in and killed the mother. Pecked her head
Oh.
and left her there on top of her babies. And then built a nest on top of carcasses.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh,
So-
man. Do you have a camera in there? Do you have a camera?
No, I saw the note warning sparrow.
Because the jet putting the extra camera aimed at the duck. I don't know, maybe not.
Blow up on our,
Not like that.
That is the fact, not last very long.
Wow, did you hear that?
We got,
How did you catch it?
I got my pellet gun and dispatched it.
but with, are we all set?
I don't know how to recover from that. I'm just bringing up the Midsummer Festival, and I guess
we did get approved for our booth, so no word yet as to where it is.
No.
They will tell.
I have been told,
We have been down.
courtesy of EE, that they don't dare put us at all.
Yeah.
But I had passed around something about a bingo card, I think. At the end, I think I showed you in particular a bingo card or something. From last year, near the end of last year. Anyway, I'll redirect it and find it, but it might be. It got some good responses from here at the thing and.
For an activity at the booth?
Yeah, but it's like a Q&A kind of thing. It doesn't necessarily replace Fred's question, but there was something appealing about it. I can't remember what it is now. And I don't know, it just popped into my mind, maybe in the fair. It's probably goofy, but you know, they have the fish bowls, little bowls with goldfish and ping pong balls.
Wait, ping pong balls with the gold?
Yes, they're little bowls. They're about yay big and you see them at fairs and they're all filled with little goldfish. And then you step back and you throw a ping pong ball, and if you get it into one of the cups, then you can take the fish, you get the brain damage fish. Anyway, it was, a punchy idea. I'm not really good at it, but
At one point, we had done kind of bingo cards where we had, a paper with different shots in the preserves, and you were supposed to find, which preserve it was in.
good idea.
That was a while ago.
But whatever it is that we do, besides the coloring books and beads that we still have less, it's coming up and then.
Yeah.
And you guys won't, maybe you won't be here in the May meeting. I don't know what that is.
What's that?
The May meeting,
Next meeting?
I will not be at the May meeting.
Okay.
yeah. So, and then boom, we're here.
Yeah, I know.
So, it just put on your thinking caps.
Since that video that you took is, able to be shown there.
We always talk
Yeah,
about
we
that,
talk
but
about
I guess part of it is that
Battery life.
It could work.
And then maybe we could get some more video, maybe bobcats, coyotes,
we have a little library of it that,
Yeah.
um,
Go to the
from,
website,
oh, you know, they actually knew they were.
yeah.
go to the website, it's on our YouTube channel.
Website. Must be well hidden.
I got just about 7 o'clock. What else that? Wow. Good.
This visitor to our yard.
Oh, nice.
No, that's beautiful, yeah.
That's in the yard.
I have this yard, but thank you.
Your yard.
Let's see.
May I make a motion to adjourn?
Second, to cancel motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Got it.
He was looking for that.
I'll certainly let you know.